My name is Hannah Hanrahan. For the first hangout, Lauren, Julie, Brandon, and myself are discussing the International Society for Technology and Education. We are each discussing different national technology standards. Brandon, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm doing the National Technology Studies, and I have Standard 5 for teachers, which is engage in professional growth and leadership. Teachers will continuously improve their professional practice, model lifelong learning, and exhibit leadership in their school and professional community by promoting and demonstrating the effective use of digital tools and resources. So teachers will participate in communities like blogs and stuff like that to explore creative applications of technology to improve student learning. They'll exhibit leadership by demonstrating a vision of technology, so showing the technology in class and then implementing it into their lesson. Evaluating and reflecting on current research and professional practice on a regular basis to make effective use of existing and emerging digital tools and resources in support of student learning. And then they'll contribute to the effectiveness and self-renewal of the teaching profession and their school community. And then I also had Standard 5 for students, which is digital citizenship. Students understand human, cultural, and societal issues related to technology and practice legal and ethical behaviors. The students will advocate and practice safe, legal, and responsible use of information and technology. They'll exhibit a positive attitude towards using technology that supports collaboration, learning, and productivity. They'll demonstrate personal responsibility for lifelong learning and exhibit leadership for digital citizenship. All right, so for my lesson for the teacher standard is on the street where you live, is online mapping lesson. So the objective is that the students will use Google Maps to pinpoint their home address and get directions to and from school. The students will enter in their home address into Google Maps, and then they'll write down the directions from their house to school, which is very important for students to know where they live and how to get there in case they get lost. And thanks to Google Maps, they'll be able to locate and see their house right away from the computer and use pictures and images to know where to go if I ever get lost. This lesson both motivates students to know their home address for safety purposes and improves their writing skills as they describe how to get to school from their house. And then for my student standard lesson is going places safely. Students will be able to discover that the internet can be used to visit faraway places and learn new things, compare how staying safe online is similar to staying safe in the real world, and explain rules by traveling safely through the internet. So the students' objective is to learn how to go to exciting places online, but they need to follow certain rules in order to remain safe. So they'll be taking a virtual field trip where they'll experience the power of the internet to take them to places that they might not be able to visit in person. And they'll learn that they should follow the safety rules when they travel online, just as they would if they were traveling in the real world. All right, so the first point for my conclusion is that technology has become a huge tool in our society, so it's very important that we use the resources that we have to help improve our teaching ability, as well as provide resources for students to utilize it effectively. We must make sure that if we're teaching our students to take advantage of these resources, that we teach them how to use those resources safely. And finally, using technology helps students show off their creative side, so while also learning new ways to learn. Yeah, and these are my resources. You guys heard me this time, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna go next, and I had the first standard for teachers, and it states, facilitate and inspire student learning and creativity. Teachers use their knowledge of subject matter, teaching and learning, technology to facilitate experiences that advance student learning, creativity, and innovation in both face-to-face and virtual environments. These standards are used to assess teachers to ensure that while they are creating and planning their lessons, they are engaging their students while they are in the classroom. They need to promote innovative thinking while allowing their students to use technology to portray their knowledge in many ways. Teachers need to use these issues in their everyday lives to keep their students engaged in the classroom. By doing so, using technology can reveal students different forms of learning. Teachers also need to be a good example to their students by willing to learn alongside their students, showing that there are many different ways that students can learn. And for the student standard, I also have the first one, and it states creative and innovation. Students will demonstrate creative learning, creative thinking, construct knowledge, and develop innovative products using technology. Teachers need to use these standards to help students express their creative thinking through technology. Students need encouragement to use their prior knowledge to create new ideas and processes while learning new ideas. And they will use technology to create new ideas and express their knowledge in a process that best fits their learning styles and needs. And then using their creative thinking, they will then begin to notice trends and make predictions in their activities during school. And students will also be able to use models and learn about more complex ideas. They'll be able to read and understand them. And then my first lesson I have to demonstrate the standards for teachers is Music is Poetry. And during this lesson, students will learn about different poetic devices used in writing, or in this case, their favorite songs. They will examine their music to detect which poetic devices are being used, for example, imagery, onomatopoeia, alliteration, and metaphors. After finding which poetic devices are being used, they will then determine if the lyrics are written in lines of poetry. If they're not, then they will rewrite them in the correct lines of poetry. The students will then determine the meaning of the words in the song. This creative lesson helps keep students engaged in poetry while allowing them to pick the music, school appropriate, of course. This lesson is also designed for students to work in groups and bounce ideas off of each other to fully understand the true meaning of the song they had chosen together. It also allows students to have the creative freedom during the lesson as well as the assessment. So they will be able to pick a form of multimedia presentation to share and evaluate their song while along with the type of poetic devices they had found in the beginning of the lesson for their song. And for the second lesson I've chosen for the student standard is called Egg Hatching into Sequencing. And for this lesson, the students will research snakes during using different types of media, for example, age-appropriate websites, audiobooks, videos, and many more. The class as a whole will build a snake egg together, and the students will be able to discuss and make certain that all of the students understand the new information learned so far in the lesson. This way, the students can apply their existing knowledge to the group discussion and see where they all are in the way of learning. The students will also sequence the events of the hatching process using pictures that the teacher will later take pictures of, and they will then rewrite or able to write sentences about them. The students will help making the egg by putting strands of newspaper and glue around a balloon. And then when the egg is dry, the teacher will put a hole in the egg and place a snake in there so that while they're not looking, of course, and while they can see how the hatching begins in the egg. And then while they're waiting for the egg to hatch, the students will make predictions to see what they think will happen to the egg and to the snake and so on. And then they will revisit those thoughts and predictions at the end of the activity. Each student will take turns hatching the egg while the teacher takes pictures of the whole entire process. The teacher will then pick 4 photos that they think will be easiest for the students to show the process in order, and then the students will put those 4 pictures in the correct order. The students will also be able to write sentences about the hatching process using words like first, second, last, etc. This lesson has so much room for creativity and innovation, and will keep all the students engaged the whole entire time. They have opportunities to apply their existing knowledge to make new ideas and make predictions for the outcome. And having the ability to research information about the snakes through different types of technology makes for a better learning experience. It will help all students learn in their own way. And then making the egg to explain the process lets the student get a better idea of how eggs are made, or and so on, and they will be able to understand the new idea that they're learning. And then while they are writing their sentences, they will be able to express their viewpoints of the hatching process in their own words. And my conclusion for teachers and educators to keep in mind is to try not to get carried away with technology, and so they don't stray away from the learning process. It can be, there's so many benefits to for technology for student learning, but it is good to keep a goal in mind while creating the lessons so you don't get off path. And number 2 is allow students to use technology to express their ideas in their own learning style, like PowerPoint, audiobooks, and videos, and stuff like that, so they are engaged and can best show their knowledge. And the 3rd one is teachers are a huge impact on students, and they are a main provider of technology for their students, so they're responsible for promoting student learning and creativity with that technology. And these are my references. And Julie, it is your turn.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Johnson. So, for teacher standard, I had standards is authentic learning experiences and assessments, incorporating contemporary tools and resources to maximize content learning in context and to develop the knowledge and skills and attitudes identified in the standards. So this standards has the teacher needs to be always designing or adapting the students' learning experiences so that they're using digital tools and resources. And a teacher should also create a technologically rich environment that students can explore their own curiosities, enhance their learning, and take charge of their education, all in a safe setting. Teachers should be creating technological activities that will cater towards diverse learners, including their learning style and more. You don't want to make an activity that not all the students to do. And finally, there should also be multiple and varied forms of formative and summative assessments that are related to the content standards and technology standards. So for the first standard I had for students, that would be standard 2, and that's communication and collaboration, and that states that students use digital media and environments to communicate and work collaboratively, including at a distance, to support individual learning and contribute to the learning of others. So this could mean multiple things, whether it is working on projects that involve the students researching and developing things with digital media, or using digital media to communicate with fellow classmates about assignments or projects. So students should be communicating online with their peers and with professionals like teachers using multiple different forms of media. And in addition to that, they should be able to communicate to people, peers, teachers, parents, administration, etc., what they have learned or found using the different forms of media. Students should be also gaining cultural and worldly awareness by engaging with people of other cultures. And students are at work in teams to present original information and to problem solve. The second student standard I have was standard 6. And that states that technology operations and concepts, and that states that students demonstrate a sound understanding of technology concepts, systems, and operations. So that is basically that students understand how to operate the technological systems that are included in their classroom. That could be an iPad, a laptop, what's called a smart board, and so on. Students should be able to know how to use the different technologies in the classroom and uses for them. So they should know use a laptop for one thing, but use an iPad for another, and use a smart board as in the same way. So some technology in the classroom, a teacher might have to show the students how to use multiple times before they're able to get used to it. It just depends on how old the student is or how good they are at learning it. Students also need to select and use applications on each of the technologies productively and appropriately. A teacher really doesn't want his or her students to go off track and of what they're supposed to be doing and use whatever technology they're using inappropriately. Students should also be able to learn new tools, software applications, and also effectively communicate how to use them to the classroom. So be able to help another student out if they're having trouble using a certain technology. And lastly, it informed that students should be able to use their current knowledge on technology and learn new technologies. So for the first lesson I have for the teachers, that is called Figurative Language. And this lesson begins with students going on selected websites for alliteration and personification, where they will either do an activity or a quiz depending on the site. After this, each student will create either a PowerPoint, Prezi, Zoho, or a similar slideshow presentation. They will illustrate an example of alliteration or personification. They have to do both. So one example for alliteration and one example for personification. And then on these pages, they will also include a clip art of the example they made for alliteration or personification. This lesson plan fits with Standard 2 for the Standards for Teachers because it allows the students to use different technological tools to help students develop content knowledge, and it also helps them better understand the tools that they are using so they can use it again in the future. In addition, this lesson also multiple ways for presentation, which is good because some students do better using PowerPoint while others are better at using Prezi or Zoho. I know I'm better at using PowerPoint. So for the student standards, the first activity that I have is the biomes project, and this is for about a 5th grade, 6th grade class. And in this activity, the students get into groups to research different biomes. The teacher will most likely put the groups together. Each student in the group has to research a different aspect of a biome. For example, one student researches an animal and another will research the climate, and so on and so forth. Their information is gathered. The students create a presentation using any medium they desire, whether that's PowerPoint, MapSkip, TeacherTube, or even just plain old posters. This activity fits Standard 2 for the students because it allows them to interact in class. It allows them to figure out, maybe even help a struggling member find their research as well. It allows the students to learn about the different biomes of the world, not just the ones that they live in, and they're able to gain why something is there and why others might not be, like why certain animals there, and so on. And for the Standard 6, I found the student will first get a link to the home page of the website on which the game is located, and then the student has to navigate correctly through the website to find the game. Once they're create a shape using dimensional shape provided, and has to figure out all the different applications of the game that comes with. The two-dimensional shapes are not use the different keys or has to click on their and so forth. The standard with just plain old two-dimensional shapes. So this prior knowledge will help the students do the game that is presented to them. And So for my conclusion, the first part I have is when using these standards, it's important to know that each lesson might not fit with all the standards listed. So a teacher doesn't have to stress about that, oh, my standard or my activity doesn't have critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making, or something like that. Not all of your lessons or activities will have standards. And teachers need to think about what grade level they're teaching, because not all the standards will fit into that grade level. Again, you don't want a kindergartner trying to be in a group and research all these aspects of a biome and then having to create a PowerPoint, Prezi, Zoho, whatever by themselves. So you just have to watch which standards you're using and try to at least include 2 into your lessons or into your grade level. And it's also important for teachers to inform their students of safe practices when they're going to online sites, because sometimes nowadays there's so many different ads on websites and everything else that children or students will want to click on, even though it might not be the safest thing for them. So a teacher needs to make sure that their students know that you don't do that. You need to do what the teacher is assigned, and that's it. I mean, even at home, they should know that you don't go to certain online sites or you don't just randomly click on anything. My references. You can go.
Okay. So I had student standards 3 and 4. Number 3 was research and information fluency. So that means that the students have to plan strategies to guide inquiry. They have to locate, organize, analyze, evaluate, synthesize, and ethically use information from a variety of sources and media. And then they have to evaluate and select information sources and digital tools based on relativity to the tasks. And they have to process data and report the results. And then number 4 was critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making. So the students have to analyze the problem and produce questions for the investigation. They have to plan a way to solve the problem, and they have to use data that they've collected to find solutions for the problem. And then they also have to use a variety of different approaches for solving the problem. So for standard number 3, my example was the rock family, and the students will be able to describe characteristics of igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic rocks and provide examples of each rock. And they have to analyze the research needs and explore website options. And they have to paraphrase information from an online source and organize it into a table, and then complete an online concept mind map describing characteristics of all 3 types of rocks and examples. So this fits into standard number 3 because in this lesson, students are researching using a variety of sources, and then they have to determine which site has the most useful information. The online mind map allows allows the teachers to assess that the students have analyzed and understood the data that they've researched. For standard 4, I chose shop till you drop. So the students will research grocery items and calculate the best price of the items, and then use coupons to purchase and save money on the items. But the problem is that they have to shop using a limited budget. And the students research the grocery items to shop using the limited budget, which is the problem in the lesson, and they have to create a plan on what they're going to buy. Then students will use trial and error so that they're not limiting their approaches. They have to figure out what the best deal is and which foods they can and cannot buy based on the budget that they have. So then I have Teacher Standards 3 and 4, which are model digital age work and learning. So teachers must be able to be fluent in the programs that they're teaching their students how to use. And they also use online programs for collaboration with peers who are other teachers, their students, and the parents. And they communicate using technology to parents, peers, and students. And then they also model and facilitate students' use of the technology that they're using in the classroom. And then number 4 is promote and model digital citizenship and responsibility. So the teachers have to model safe and legal use, which would be like making sure that students are citing their sources correctly and not plagiarizing. And then they also have to teach students how to use digital etiquette. So like when they're typing an email, they have to be respectful and use manners, and the teachers really need to teach that. And then teachers can also use technology to collaborate with other cultures. So they could do a Google Hangout with a classroom from another country, and the students would be able to learn about that country and their culture through that. So my example lesson for Standard 3 is the 3 Billy Goats Gruff. So students will create a book and then read the book with their peers and their parents. So for the activity, the teacher reads the original book aloud, and then the teacher would also show online versions of the book, and then the class creates their own version of the book on a program called Bookymon. You do it on an interactive whiteboard, and then the book can be accessed at home. So this fits with Standard 3 because teachers will be using different programs in this lesson, such as Bookymon and interactive whiteboards. And teachers must show knowledge and demonstrate fluency when using these programs. And the program Bookymon is accessible by parents, which is a way for teachers to communicate using the technology. And by doing this lesson as a class, the teacher will be able to model they will make an example page so that the students know what they need to be doing. And then the teacher can also facilitate students' use of the technology by approving what they want to contribute to the book creation. Next is my example lesson for Standard 4. I chose Through the Eyes of a Child. So the students will create or compare life in the 1860s to life in the 2000s. So for this activity, the students will research the lives of the children in the 1860s and then compare using a Venn diagram, using a program called Interactive 2-Circle Venn Diagram. And students create a short video sharing their findings, or they could reenact life in the 1860s, and then the teachers would share this video on TeacherTube. The teacher has to show students how to research lives of children by providing them with school-appropriate sources. The teacher will demonstrate appropriate research research strategies such as how to properly cite the sources that they find when researching. And collaborating with other cultures will be done indirectly through this lesson, as students will gain knowledge of students' lives in the 1860s. And creating a video in this activity will give teachers a chance to provide rules for the students on digital etiquette, such as not plagiarizing or using inappropriate language when creating this video. And then in conclusion, teachers always need to keep in mind that there always needs to be a backup plan when using lessons that involve technology. Anything could go wrong at any given moment, so they need to make sure that they have something else in mind just in case something does happen. And then many students don't have the knowledge of these programs, so the teachers must model how to use the programs, and they have to know exactly how to use the programs that they're expecting their students to know how to use. And then teachers also need to model internet appropriate behavior, so like digital etiquette, teaching the students that they need to be respectful when using the internet, and just because you're behind a screen and no one can see you, you still have to use your manners, and then also citing sources appropriately. And those are my references.
All right, great job, guys.